Okay, everybody, it is time to cover maybe the biggest drama, quote unquote, of the publishing industry of the year, and that is going to be the Sanderson v. Audible situation. Now, I have been taking a little bit of time to cover this because I was trying to attempt some things on my end that unfortunately did not work out. We'll go over those at the end because I think the fact they didn't work out actually helps emphasize some of Sanderson's points here. But before we get into it, so everyone's on the same page, I'm going to go ahead and read through Sanderson's statement. If you have already read through this, time code down below to get to discussing the points within it. But for now, here is what Sanderson has said about his secret projects and Audible. Audiobooks for non-backers. On the 10th or 11th of each month, a book goes to backers. We will put the audiobooks up for sale. They will be on several services, but I recommend the two I mentioned above, Spotify and Speechify. The books will not be on Audible for the foreseeable future. This is dangerous on my part. I don't want to make an enemy of Amazon. I like the people at Audible and had several meetings with them this year, but Audible has grown to a place where it's very bad for authors. It's a good company doing bad things. Again, this is dangerous to say. I don't want to make anyone feel guilty. I have an Audible account and subscription. It's how my dyslexic son reads most of the books he reads. Audible did some great things for books, notably spearheading the audio revolution, which brought audiobooks down to a reasonable price. I like that part a lot. However, they treat authors very poorly, particularly indie authors. The deal Audible demands of them is unconscionable, and I am hoping that providing market forces will encourage change in a positive direction. If you want details, the current industry standard for a digital product is to pay a creator 70% on a sale. It's what Steam pays your average creator for a game sale. It's what Amazon pays on ebooks. It's what Apple pays for app downloads. And they're getting heat for taking as much as they are, rightfully so. Audible pays 40%. Almost half. For a frame of reference, most brick and mortar stores take around 50 on a retail product. Audible pays indie authors less than a bookstore does when a bookstore has storefront, sales staff, and warehousing to deal with. I knew things were bad, which is why I wanted to explore other options with the Kickstarter, but I didn't know how bad. Indeed, if indie authors don't agree to be exclusive to Audible, they get dropped from 40% to a measly 25%. Buying an audiobook through Audible instead of from another site literally costs the author money. Again, I like the people at Audible. I like a lot about Audible. I don't want to go to war, but I do have to call them out. This is shameful behavior. I'll bet every person there will say they are a book lover, and yet they are squeezing indie authors to death. I have had several meetings with them, and I felt like I could see their embarrassment in their responses and actions. Here's the problem. There are no true competitors to Audible. Sure, there are other companies that can buy your book, but they all just list on Audible and then take a percentage on top of what Audible is taking. Apple, their books come in large part from Audible. Recorded Books, they are an awesome company whom I love, but their biggest market is Audible. Macmillan, my publisher, they just turn around and put their books on Audible. I had a huge problem finding anyone who, if I sold the secret projects to them, wouldn't just put them on Audible. And while I can't tell you details, all of their deals are around the same low rates that Audible is paying indie authors. Audible runs this town, and they set the rates for everyone everywhere. I found two companies only in all of the deals I investigated who are willing to take on Audible: Spotify and Speechify. My Spotify deal is, unfortunately, locked down behind NDA. All I can say is that they treated me well, and I'm happy. Here's where the gold star goes to Speechify. Let me tell you, they came to me and said, full of enthusiasm for the project, they'd give me 100%. I almost took it, but then I asked the owner if this was a deal he could give other authors, or if it was a deal only Brandon Sanderson could get. He considered that, then said he'd be willing to do the industry standard, 70%, for any author who lists their books directly on Speechify a la carte. So I told him I wanted that deal if he agreed to make the terms of our deal public. I've made enough on this Kickstarter. I don't need to squeeze people for every penny. But what I do want is to find a way to provide options for authors. I think that by agreeing to these two deals, I'm doing that. We have the open offer from Speechify, and we have Spotify trying very hard to break Audible's near monopoly. I hope this will rejuvenate the industry, because I do like Audible. I worry that they'll stagnate, strangle their creators, and end up burning away because of it. Real competition is good for everyone, including the companies themselves. Lack of it leads to slow corporate death. So I'm not putting these books on Audible. Not for a year at least, maybe longer. I need to be able to make a statement, and I realize this makes it inconvenient for many of you. I'm sorry, I really am. And I know it's going to cost me a ton of sales, because right now, people tend to just buy on the platform they're comfortable with. The Lost Metal pre-orders were 75% audio. Almost all through Audible. I know many of my fans, probably hundreds of thousands of them, simply won't buy the books because it's super inconvenient to go somewhere else. Indeed, Audible locks you into the mentality of making you sign up for a subscription to get proper prices on audiobooks, which then makes you even more hesitant to shop around. But please take the time to try these books somewhere else. I've priced them at $15, the current price of a monthly subscription to Audible, at their most common price point. You can get these books with no subscription and no credit. Each book you buy somewhere else helps break open this field. It will lead to lower prices, fewer subscription models, and better pay for authors. Plus, these partners I've gone to really deserve the support for being willing to try to change things. Now, it goes without saying that I absolutely support what Sanderson is doing here. This is someone putting their principles over their wallet, and it matters. I know there's going to be a lot of people in the comments section who are just saying he's possibly doing this for attention or what have you, but no, I promise, as someone who has published a book before, not being on Audible is going to drastically affect the amount Sanderson will make from these books in the long run, especially if he keeps it off there for longer than a year. He was not lying when he said 75% of the pre-orders for The Lost Metal were audio, and a large, vast percentage of that is going to be through Audible. But as someone who has indie published a book, this gets far worse than just the Audible problem, and it balloons out to an Amazon problem. I don't mean to sound conspiratorial, but Amazon is successfully positioning multiple companies they own to almost be the default publisher you have to use if you're trying to publish fiction, as well as the place to go to read these books because of how many are forced into being exclusively on their platforms. Think about the cut that Audible is taking. You are left with 40%, and if you don't agree to be exclusive there, that is going to be cut down to 25%. And when 75-ish% of your pre-orders or orders for your book are coming in through that platform, guess where you're probably going to want to be exclusive for at least your audiobook, right? Oh, and by the way, the easiest way to get your audiobook produced now if you are an indie author is through ACX, which is owned by Audible. And of course, once you get your book produced, you're immediately going to be offered to put it on Audible for this vastly better rate. But once it's on Audible, guess what? You're also going to be offered Kindle Select. It's a program where you exclusively publish the ebook of your book directly to Kindle and nowhere else. And if you do that, guess what? You'll go ahead and get better pay, and more valuably, in my opinion, you will also get promoted in the most valuable ebook market space in the world, Kindle Unlimited. And yeah, it directly says if you go exclusive with them, you will get paid better and you will get promoted more. And as someone who has sold an ebook, guess what market you really can't afford to miss out on? I didn't go exclusively to Kindle Unlimited, but if you look at the chart of my sales, I might as well have. I just didn't want to exclusively sell through Amazon because ew. Full transparency though, I did agree to have my audiobook be Audible exclusive and iTunes because that's their deal. Because when I saw the 25%, I went, man, I got morals, but apparently there's a line. I can't just get 25%. Now that's the reason why it's taken me a bit longer to actually cover this video. When the news first broke, I did ask my publisher if they could then reach out to the audiobook publisher and not have my next book be an Audible exclusive. It didn't even go that far because I was pretty much just told straight up that is not going to happen because of how much money we would lose. Think about that. Even the publishers know now if they don't go Audible Audible exclusive with their release because so much of the market is there and because you get such a better rate, I'm sure, even with the deals they do behind the doors that are just like what the publishers get versus what an indie author gets, that it is a better financial decision to go with Audible exclusives than all of the rest of the competitors combined. And with so many authors being incentivized to either partially or fully exclusively use Amazon services, the readers who don't want to miss out on books from their favorite authors are through a self-feeding cycle being tempted and pulled into buying into this ecosystem themselves all the more. So yeah, when Sanderson was talking about in his letter that he went to multiple different people to see if they could not do it through Audible, and the answer he got was no, we're gonna do it through Audible, there's a reason. Now I'm gonna put the asterisk that I'm not trying to say they have a complete monopoly or that every author makes these decisions. All I'm trying to stress is that it's reaching a point where Amazon is succeeding in more and more sectors of the publishing space, making it so that if you do not use their services, you are starting, especially if you are indie, with yourself shot in the foot. And that's why it's so important that Sanderson is mentioning other companies like Speechify and Spotify. But I'm going to take that even further and shout out things like
Libro.fm,
which actually supports local bookstores. You also have Libby, which takes advantage of local libraries and is completely free if you have a library card. Someone needs to do a deep dive into how the world just forgot about libraries. They're so cool and people just do not take advantage of them. I can already see the comment being put in my comment section that I'm overreacting. People are still picking stuff off the bookshelf all the time without any influence from Amazon. Absolutely. I don't think Amazon controls what everyone reads. I am just saying on the publishing side of thing, it really makes me uncomfortable as a consumer how much control and incentive they are able to offer to completely go their way versus any other competitor, let alone in some spaces, every competitor combined. The positive note I can end this video on, though, is it does seem to be the case that more and more people are taking notice of this, and the fact that we have someone like Sanderson taking this big stand really matters. Because whether it's the response I've seen Sanderson get for this or the Disney Must Pay situation, once one author really starts making noise, you usually find a whole lot who will fall in line behind them and hopefully leverage it enough to make a difference. We've even seen Amazon respond to pressure like this before with the whole return loophole on Audible they finally fixed. Those were just my thoughts on a really complex, important situation, and I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments down below, because for me, as someone who has put out a book and constantly consumes books, it is bothering me how much control for indie authors, indie publishers, and consumers Amazon is positioning themselves to have and is seeming to want to grow that influence aggressively. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all.